"Ma'am, don't get in the car." The desperate warning ripped through the quiet afternoon, sharp enough to freeze Evelyn Langford mid-motion. Her fingers hovered over the chrome handle of her luxury sedan as the familiar hum of the city faded into nothing. Traffic noise, distant sirens, even the whisper of wind between the tall buildings, all of it vanished under the weight of that frantic voice. Her security team sprang into action instantly. Two men in dark suits surged toward the source of the shout. A janitor in a gray uniform, face strained of color and slick with sweat. He had burst out of a service exit like a man fleeing a fire, eyes locked on Evelyn with urgent, pleading terror. "Stay back," one guard at Graves ordered, stepping in front of her like a steel wall. The second guard seized the janitor, wrenching him around and slamming him against the tower's stone wall. Keys clattered to the ground as the man gasped for breath. "Don't let her get in," the janitor insisted, twisting to keep Evelyn in sight. "Please, you can't." Evelyn's initial shock hardened into cold annoyance. She was already running late for a meeting that could not be rescheduled, one wrapped in secrecy from top to bottom. This intrusion was unacceptable. "Graves," she snapped, every word sharp enough to cut. "What is happening?" "Who is he?" "Liam Byrne, ma'am," Graves replied, scanning rooftops and parked cars, his hand drifting near his jacket. "Night shift maintenance. Probably unstable." "He's lost it," the other guard muttered, tightening his grip. "No." Liam's voice cracked. "Just listen just for a second. The car, it isn't safe." The word safe landed like a dropped stone. Evelyn Langford dealt with threats daily: corporate spies, hostile takeovers, security vulnerabilities, but hearing a janitor shout about her safety on a sidewalk carried only one implication. Graves's gaze moved from Liam to the sleek black sedan. Instantly, training overtook doubt. "Ma'am, move away from the vehicle." No hesitation, no softness. He signaled the other guard. "Lock it down." "Call the police." "Notify bomb squad." "Full perimeter." "A bomb?" Evelyn hissed. "Graves, this is ridiculous." "Maybe," he murmured, guiding her back toward the marble lobby. "But we don't gamble with maybes." Within minutes the street erupted into a storm of flashing lights. Police cars blocked both ends of the road. Onlookers crowded behind tape with phones raised high. Evelyn stood behind the glass of her lobby, her plans for the day collapsing like a house of cards. Her driver, pale and shaken, waited behind the police line. Liam was on his knees, cuffed, no longer resisting, only staring at the sedan sitting alone like a dark monument in the middle of the secured street. He had stopped her. That was all he had focused on. But now the reality of what came next seemed to crush him. As a bomb disposal robot approached the car, Liam's thoughts drifted to his daughter. Maddie, sick, frail, fighting a disease that stole her strength cell by cell. He remembered the doctor's grave tone. "It's progressing faster than expected, Mr. Byrne. Options are limited." But there was one option, the one he had discovered in Thorin, discarded documents he'd pieced together in a dim custodial closet. Shaw Industries. A new experimental treatment. A miracle, they called it. And the information he uncovered had chilled him to the bone. A metallic groan pulled him back. The robot examined the undercarriage. Evelyn watched from inside, fury twisting inside her. She was supposed to be at a private airfield soon, a meeting tied to 2 years of secret funding and a long-awaited reunion with her brother. When she glanced at Liam, he didn't seem like a threat, more like a man drowning. After an hour of frantic activity, the result landed like a hammer. The car was completely clean. No device, no danger, nothing. The crowd dispersed. The sirens faded. Her patience evaporated. Officers yanked Liam to his feet. "You're facing a felony," one warned. "False report, inciting public panic." "The DA's going to love this." They were about to drag him to a cruiser when Evelyn stepped outside. Her heels struck the pavement with cold precision. Graves moved to intervene, but she stopped him. She stepped in front of Liam. Her stare hit with the force of a physical blow. For a moment, the officers hesitated. She dismissed them with a glance. "You have 5 seconds," she whispered, the quiet far more dangerous than a shout. "Explain why you destroyed my day. If I don't believe you, I will make sure what remains of your life collapses." Liam's heart pounded. He couldn't reveal everything. The shredded documents, the late-night investigations, a broken bar, she would never believe all of it. He needed one try to something sharp enough to pierce her armor. His throat tightened, words scrapping out like sand. Neurosynaptic decay syndrome. Evelyn flinched almost imperceptibly, but he saw it. In that tiny crack, Liam found confirmation. She knew exactly what he meant. She had buried that name under layers of secrecy, legal protection, and personal grief. Hearing it from a janitor might as well have been hearing it from a ghost. Her face smoothed into icy control as she turned to the officers. "This is an internal corporate matter. Release him to my security chief. Langford Industries will not be pressing charges. Send our legal department the paperwork and expect a donation for the resources used today." It wasn't a request. Reluctantly, the officers removed Liam's cuffs. He rubbed the burning marks on his wrists, a proof of how close he had come to disaster. "Graves," Evelyn ordered, "take Mr. Byrne to the conference room on the 50th floor. He speaks to no one. He doesn't leave. Stay with him." "Yes, ma'am." Graves guided him inside. The touch wasn't violent, but it offered no choice. As they entered the gleaming lobby, a new fear settled over Liam. He was no longer in police custody. He was in the custody of Evelyn Langford, a woman who didn't deal with problems. She eliminated them. The conference room on the 50th floor felt like a glass cage suspended over the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sprawling tapestry of lights below. The tably massive, black, polished stone was as cold as the silence surrounding him. Graves stood by the door, unmoving. Time dragged on. Liam paced the conference room like a caged animal, each step fueled by the image of Maya sitting alone in their apartment, waiting for a call that wasn't coming. She was probably curled up on the couch with her favorite cartoon playing, oblivious to the storm her father had stepped into. He needed to reach her. She panicked easily. She counted on him. He glanced toward Graves, who stood guard at the door like a block of stone. "Please see broken bar, can I use my phone?" Liam asked, desperation cracking his voice. "Just to tell my daughter I'll be late." "No," Graves replied without a hint of emotion. Before Liam could argue, the door swung open. Evelyn Langford entered with the fluid precision of someone who controlled everything in her orbit. Her assistant followed, tablet in hand, but Evelyn dismissed her with a flick of her wrist. The door shut behind her, sealing the room in quiet tension. She didn't sit. Instead, she paced slowly, her eyes fixed on Liam as if analyzing a specimen under glass. Liam stood awkwardly, acutely aware of his sweat-stained uniform and the gulf between their lives. "Neurosynaptic decay syndrome," she began, voice cool and clinical. "A rare condition. Very few documented cases." She tilted her head. "Tell me, Mr. Byrne, how a maintenance worker becomes familiar with a disease most specialists have never encountered." Liam forced his trembling hands behind his back. "My daughter Madia was diagnosed half a year ago." The words felt heavier than anything he'd ever carried. Evelyn paused mid-step and turned toward him. For a moment, something shifted in her expression, the recognition, maybe even a buried ache. "She's only 7. Liam continued. "She loves to draw a broken bar, but her hands they shake now. They told me it's getting worse, that nothing can stop it." Evelyn's eyes softened by a fraction, but she masked it quickly. "I know about the clinical trial," Liam added, lowering his voice. "The one your company is backing, the Langford Initiative. I know you believe it's a cure." Her face became unreadable stone. "And how?" she asked. "Would you know anything about that?" "I found documents," he said. He couldn't bring himself to admit he'd salvaged them from a shred bin. "I saw the name of the primary test subject. Your brother Kellen Langford." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "You've been busy." "I was desperate," he snapped. "Wouldn't you be? A possible cure exists in the very building where I mop floors. A cure for the thing that's killing my little girl. I needed answers, and those answers gave you the right to trigger a citywide panic, to sabotage my day, to jeopardize a project I've invested years and billions into." "Yes," Liam said without hesitation. "Because what you're funding a broken bar, it isn't a cure. It's a death sentence. The data they bury the failure rates. They're not saving your brother, they're sacrificing him." Evelyn stared at him long and hard, her thoughts moving behind her eyes like wildfire. Was he a pawn in a corporate attack, a lunatic, or a father clinging to a truth she herself had been too afraid to confront? She finally took a seat at the head of the table and motioned for him to sit opposite her. The air between them felt like a negotiation between worlds. "You say you have a daughter," she said, voice shifting into something sharper. more strategic. I'll need her full medical file, scans, test results, everything. Liam stiffened. Why? She's not part of this. She is now, Evelyn replied, locking her gaze with his. You've made a claim that could upend everything I have built. I need to know if your story rests on the broken bar or fiction. She leaned forward slightly. You are not walking out of this tower. My team will dig through every corner of your life, including your daughter's. If you're lying, Mr. Brenna broken bar. She paused, letting silence form a noose around the room. You will regret ever stepping in front of my car. The room seemed to shrink around Liam. He stared at the glossy black table, seeing his distorted reflection staring back. A man out of place, a man with everything to lose. Above them, in her penthouse office, Evelyn moved with an icy efficiency. His words had cracked something deep inside Hera, an echo of fear she kept buried. I want a full profile on Liam Byrne, she instructed Graves through the intercom. Work history, financials, personal connections. I want the medical file for his daughter, every page. Coordinate with Street Jude's directly. Use my authorization. Yes, ma'am, Graves responded. And keep him isolated. No calls, no contact. He's a lockbox until I decide otherwise. The machinery of Langford Industries roared into motion, cold, precise, unstoppable. In less than an hour, encrypted files arrived on Evelyn's tablet. She bypassed everything except the medical report. Maya Byrne, age 7, neurological deterioration consistent with stage 2 neurosynaptic decay. Evelyn felt a cold weight settle in her chest. Tremors, motor decline, accelerated progression. It was the same pattern she received in weekly reports about Kellen. Liam hadn't lied. And if his daughter's condition was real, a broken bar, then everything he'd claimed about the so-called cure might be real too. On this 50th floor, Liam approached the guard again, eyes raw with worry. Please, he begged. I just need to tell her I'm okay. She gets scared. 2 minutes. You can monitor the whole thing. Graves, unreadable as always, touched his earpiece. Ma'am. He's requesting to call his daughter. A short silence followed before Evelyn's voice finally answered, clipped and controlled. Put it on speaker. Graves dialed the number. After a moment, a small voice chimed through. Daddy? Relief crashed through Liam, nearly buckling his knees. Hey, sweetheart, I'm here. You didn't call after school, she said, confused and worried. Are you okay? Liam pressed his forehead against the cold window, hating the lie he was about to tell. I'm so sorry, Maya. It's been a crazy night at work. One of the big pipes burst. We're cleaning up the mess. I have to stay late. Oh, a broken bar, she whispered. Will you be? Liam's chest tightened at the sound of his daughter's voice. Will you be home for bedtime stories? She asked, innocent and hopeful. He forced steadiness into his reply. I'm going to do my best, Maya. I'll try really hard. Did you finish your snack? Yes, and my homework. I drew you a castle with a big gate so monsters can't get in. Liam swallowed the sob rising in his throat and disguised it as a cough. That sounds perfect, sweetheart. Keep that gate strong for me, okay? Okay, Daddy. I love you. I love you more. Maya. Be good for Mrs. Henderson. I'll call again soon. When the call ended, his hand shook. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, burying his face in his palms. The strength he'd been clinging to crumbled completely. 5 floors above him, Evelyn stood frozen in front of her intercom, having heard every word. The fragile silence of her office was now filled with something raw and human, the echo of a father's breaking heart. She turned the intercom off. No report, no audit, no executive summary had ever revealed what she had just heard. Liam Byrne was no threat to her corporation. He was a man fighting for someone he loved, just like she was. She opened the confidential folder for the Langford Initiative on her secure terminal. She bypassed the polished progress reports written by Dr. Alistair Finch, skimmed past the inflated projections, and focused on the financials, equipment purchases, chemical acquisitions, containment units, a broken bar, and one entry she had approved months ago without a second thought, a consulting fee to a firm named Helios Analytics. A quick encrypted search revealed it was nothing more than a shell company owned by Dr. Corbin Vance, a biochemist stripped of his license for falsifying clinical trial data. Finch had never once mentioned him. Her stomach turned to ice, driven by desperation for a miracle. She had overlooked every signal. Finch refusing third-party audits, dismissing oversight as delays her dying brother couldn't afford. Her eyes drifted to the photo on her desk, herself and her brother on a sailboat, smiling in the sun before sickness took over their lives. She finally understood. Liam had been right up. They weren't trying to save her brother, they were exploiting him. Instead of calling Graves, she dialed Dr. Finch directly through her secure line. He answered instantly, voice smooth and confident. "Evelyn, I was beginning to worry. I assumed the meeting when it was postponed," she replied coldly, cutting him off. "I'm reviewing the Q3 expenditure reports." A flagged payment to Helios Analytics caught my attention. "Care to explain Dr. Corbin Vance's role?" Silence. A few seconds of Ida, but enough to reveal everything. When Finch finally spoke, the silk in his voice had frayed. "Corbin Vance? That must be a clerical error. He has no formal involvement, merely an old colleague I consult for his broken bar historical insight." "Historical insight into falsifying clinical data?" Evelyn asked sharply. Finch sputtered with manufactured outrage. "Academic politics ruined that man, and I will not have my integrity attacked. Evelyn, not after everything I have done for your family." "Your integrity is now evidence, Alistair," she replied, voice icy and final. "You will not alter the servers, you will not delete anything, and if you go anywhere near my brother, I'll bring federal prosecutors to your door before you can breathe. Are we clear?" She didn't wait for his answer. The dead silence left behind felt like a guillotine falling. The game had changed, and Finch knew she had caught him. She took the private elevator to the 50th floor. When she entered the glass conference room, Liam was pacing like a trapped animal. He stopped when he saw her, fear and exhaustion carved into his face. Everything between them had shifted. He was no longer a suspect, she was no longer his accuser. They were two people facing the same enemy. "You were right," she admitted, the words scrapping her pride. She slid her tablet toward him. On the screen, Helios Analytics, and Dr. Corbin Vance's disgraced profile. "Finch has been funneling money to a researcher banned for faking trial results. He panicked when I confronted him. He lied." Liam stared at the proof. Instead of relief, it only deepened his fear. "He's going to act fast," Liam whispered. "He'll push his plan ahead." "Yes," Evelyn confirmed tightly. "The meeting you disrupted today was engineered to finalize the project and authorize the last transfer of funds. After that, Finch disappears with the data. And with my brother." Bits of shredded documents Liam had seen earlier suddenly clicked into place. "Post-transfer asset liquidation," he murmured. They weren't referring to financial assets. They meant her brother. "He's going to kill him," Liam said, the truth hitting him like a blow. "To destroy any proof the cure is fake." Evelyn nodded grimly. "Which means we only have a few hours. Tell me everything you remember, every detail." "Nothing is too small." For the first time, Liam felt power, and not much, but enough. He was no longer helpless. He had pieces of the truth no one else had. "I'll tell you," he said, "but first, you have to promise me something." She lifted an eyebrow. "My daughter," he said firmly. "If I help you a broken bar, you protect her, no matter what happens to me." Evelyn studied him, seeing clearly for the first time the fierce resolve of her parent. She felt a spark of the same fire in herself. "Your daughter's safety is absolute," she said softly. "When this is over, I'll make sure she gets legitimate medical care anywhere in the world. That is my word as a person, not a CEO." It was a promise, and it was enough. Liam shared everything. Encrypted bank accounts, mismatched chemical formulas, and one crucial detail: a disposal company scheduled for a medical waste pickup at dawn from the facility's backloading dock. "That's not waste," Evelyn whispered. "That's Kellen." She jolted into action. "Graves," she snapped into the intercom, "prep the jet for Black Ridge Airfield. I need full schematics of the North Valley facility, architecture, security, VAC, everything." She turned to Liam again. "Federal marshals need a judge. Warrants could take 12 hours. We don't have that time." "Finch will vanish. They'll guard the main entrance," Liam said, thinking fast. "He'll expect you to attack head-on." Graves entered, projecting the facility blueprints onto a descending screen. It was a fortress of electrified fences, sensors, a single access road. "Ma'am," Graves warned, "breaking in is impossible." Liam stepped forward, eyes zeroing in not on the building but on an overlooked icon near the edge of the compound. "What's that?" Evelyn asked. "Industrial sanitation conduit," Liam said. "Carries acidic runoff from the labs. It's fortified and leads to a drainage culvert half a mile beyond the perimeter." Graves shook his head. "It's barely 30 inches wide, directly connected to the waste system. It's suicide." "Not if the waste system is offline," Liam countered. "The maintenance log I saw said the main filters shut down every night for cleaning. During that downtime, the lab would be in power-saving mode and no experiments running." Evelyn's gaze lingered on Liam, a spark of respect flickering in her eyes. He didn't see the building as a fortress, he saw it the way only someone who worked in its hidden corners could. "So your plan is to crawl in through a drainage pipe?" she asked. "Not exactly," Liam corrected softly. "You're the person he'll expect at the front gates. He won't even think to look for a janitor coming in through the drains." A heavy silence filled the room. The plan was wild, borderline reckless, a broken bar, but it was the only path left. Evelyn's attention shifted from the blueprint to Liam's steady expression, then to Graves. "Prepare the equipment," she ordered. "We're going in, and Mr. Byrne is coming with us." The jet cut through the night sky like a pale ghost, the city shrinking to a glittering grid beneath them. Liam sat stiffly in a luxuriously soft leather seat, a setting so foreign it made his janitor's uniform feel like a disguise. Across from him, Evelyn Langford had shed her boardroom composure and transformed into a strategist, her face washed in the cold glow of digital schematics. Graves sat nearby, checking their compact gear piece by piece with clinical precision. The silence on the plane carried all the weight of their mission: fear, urgency, and a sliver of fragile hope. Liam clung to the armrests, his thoughts drifting to Maya. He pictured her drawing of the castle with the hopeful little gate built to keep monsters out. Tonight, he was walking straight toward those monsters. Evelyn lifted her eyes, studying him with an analytical but no longer hostile gaze. "Tell me about her," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the drone of the engines. "Who?" "Maya." "You're risking everything." "I want to understand why." He swallowed hard, the ache in his throat almost too heavy to speak past. "She's a broken bar bright," he began. "Sharp, funny, she asks questions non-stop. Her favorite color is yellow, the soft kind you see when the sun first rises. She says she wants to be an astronomer, wants to find a new star and name it after her mom." His voice faltered as the memory of his wife hit with unexpected force. Evelyn didn't offer sympathy, she simply listened. "My brother, Kellen," she murmured, her voice so soft he had to lean in. "He loved sailing. Said the ocean was the only place you could really feel how immense the world was, how small your worries truly were. The last time he called me broken bar, he said he just wanted to feel warm sunlight without feeling like he was disappearing." For a brief moment, they weren't a CEO and a janitor, they were two people fighting the same cruel battle, driven by the love of the people they were trying to save. An hour later, the luxury of the jet felt like a half-remembered dream. The forest around them was cold and damp, the air thick with silence. They moved like shadows through the trees until the building emerged a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, and beyond it, the dark silhouette of the North Valley facility. Liam led them along the perimeter to the spot he'd memorized. The drainage culvert crouched at the edge of the compound, half hidden by weeds and reeking faintly of chemicals. Graves clipped through the rusted grate with bolt cutters. "The filtration system should be down for roughly 2 hours, he whispered, passing out night vision goggles. "If we're not out before they restart it, this pipe floods with corrosive waste. We go in, find her brother, and get out. No detours." The crawl through the pipe was suffocating. Liam followed Graves, forced to move on his hands and knees through slick, foul-smelling residue. The beam from their goggles painted everything in a sickly green glow. Their breathing echoed back at them like they were trapped inside a metal coffin. By the time Graves whispered, "We're here," Liam felt as if he'd been crawling for days. Ahead of them, a vertical steel grate sealed the end of the pipe. Beyond it, Liam could barely make out machinery and pipework in a sprawling underground chamber. They'd made it inside. Graves lifted a hydraulic pry tool then froze. He slowly held up a hand for silence and peered through the grate, his entire body tensed. "What is it?" Evelyn whispered. Graves backed away from the bars, his voice tight. "We've got trouble. The lab isn't in standby mode. 2 men are down, 3 armed." The word armed reverberated through the narrow pipe like a blade scraping metal. Liam's blood ran cold. Through the grate he saw them clearly now, at 2 men dressed not in standard security uniforms but in tactical gear. They carried compact submachine guns and moved with predatory discipline. They weren't security, they were professionals, and they were loading large, sealed biohazard containers onto a heavy-duty pallet near the freight elevator. "They're not patrolling," Graves murmured. "They're preparing for departure." Liam's gaze locked onto the containers. A memory clicked into place. A line from the shredded documents. "Transport and disposal contract. Bio-waste, Class 7. The pickup scheduled for early morning." It was happening now. "That's the transport," Liam breathed. "Finch moved everything up after you confronted him." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "Asset liquidation," she whispered bitterly. "They weren't here to gather evidence anymore. They were racing to stop a killing already in progress." "We can't go out this way," Graves said. "They'll spot us instantly." Liam forced himself to think, squeezing his eyes shut and mentally tracing the facility map he'd memorized. He wasn't a tactical expert, but he knew buildings, he knew hidden pathways. "The supply shaft," he muttered urgently. "The dumbwaiter. It's on the north wall at 20 yards from here. It runs through the entire building." "That's open floor," Graves countered. "Make a diversion," Evelyn said, already deciding. "Something loud. Something they can't ignore." Graves activated a compact electromagnetic device, aimed it through the grate, and braced. "Once it goes off, move. You'll only have seconds." He triggered it. A burst of blinding white-blue light tore through the far corridor, followed by a concussive crack that echoed like thunder. Glass shattered. Darkness swallowed the hallway as alarms screamed to life. "Move," Graves yelled, kicking the grate open with a sharp metallic snap. They bolted into the open. For a heartbeat, Liam froze exposed under the cavernous ceiling, lights flickering, alarms wailing. Evelyn grabbed his arm and yanked him forward. "Liam, run." They sprinted. Those 20 yards felt endless. Liam's lungs burned, his heart hammering in his ears. He could hear the shouts behind them as flashlights swept the room. He hit the wall hard, hands scrambling across the surface until they found the recessed handle of the dumbwaiter door. He yanked, locked. A beam of light swept toward them. Graves reached them, jammed a pry bar into the seam, and forced the door open with a screech of tearing metal. He shoved Liam and Evelyn into the narrow, grease-smeared compartment before squeezing in and slamming the door behind them just as the flashlight beam hit their previous position. Total darkness swallowed them. Liam felt blindly for the controls and slammed the button. The dumbwaiter lurched violently upward, the chain mechanism clattering loudly enough to give away their route. "The medical wing is on the 3rd floor," Liam whispered. "We're close." "Almost there." Then, with a jolt, the dumbwaiter stopped dead. The thin metal door offered only a sliver of sound, but through it they caught the faint squeak of rubber wheels gliding across polished floors and the soft murmur of hurried voices. Graves eased the door open just enough to peer out. Liam followed his gaze and saw a bright, sterile hallway stretching outward. 2 orderlies in surgical scrubs were pushing a gurney down the corridor. A still body lay on it, concealed beneath a white sheet. Walking beside it, checking his watch with clinical detachment, was Dr. Finch. Evelyn saw it at the same moment. A strangled, broken sound escaped her, a single word to warn from her soul, one that was both plea and denial. "Kellen." She lunged for the door, a raw cry rising in her throat, but Graves grabbed her instantly, dragging her back into the cramped shadows of the dumbwaiter. "Not yet, await," he hissed. His grip was iron. "You step out now, we all die." "That's my brother," she choked, her whole body trembling as the gurney rolled toward the freight elevator at the far end of the hall. Liam watched, heart hammering, as Finch pressed the elevator call button. The heavy steel doors parted. The orderlies wheeled the covered figure inside. Finch gave the hall a final sweeping glance, an eerily satisfied smirk tugging at his lips before stepping in after them. The doors slid shut with a cold metallic thud. Evelyn crumpled against the wall, the breath punched from her. Every sacrifice, every frantic risk, the brutal crawl through the pipe, it all felt like it had led to this single moment of failure. But Liam shook his head. "Number." Both Evelyn and Graves stared at him. "What do you mean?" "No," Graves snapped. "It's fake," Liam said, the realization lighting his expression. It has to be. Think about Ida. Finch panics after your call, but then casually pushes the most valuable patient through the most monitored hallway, under a sheet. Why not secure him in a sealed bio bag if he's considered waste? He wants a record. He wants anyone checking logs later to believe Kellen left through that elevator. Evelyn lifted her head, eyes narrowing with sudden, fragile hope. He's trying to create a false trail, she murmured. Make it look like my brother is gone a broken bar when he isn't. She snapped her tablet open, its bright screen cutting through the dimness. She pulled up the third-floor layout. He'll need a secured room, she muttered, scanning, hidden, away from the main cameras, somewhere with another exit. Liam leaned in. Not a new room, an old one, something the renovation skipped. His finger landed on a faded section at the end of the wing, labeled in old, nearly unreadable text. Surgical Theater 3A decommissioned there. Old wing, probably still using ancient safety systems, and it has its own service elevator that drops straight into a basement loading dock. Evelyn zoomed in, confirming the thin, disconnected elevator shaft. The ghost route, she whispered. Down the hall, the freight elevator chimed again. Finch and the orderlies stepped out without the gurney. Their job was finished. Now, Graves said sharply. Now we move. They slipped from the dumbwaiter into the bright, sterile corridor, the air sharp with antiseptic, every sound loud enough to give them away. They melted into a shadowed recess as Finch and his staff passed, their voices fading. Reaching the entrance to the decommissioned wing, they found it dimly lit, the air colder, light fixtures spaced wide apart. At the end stood heavy steel double doors with wired glass windows revealing nothing but darkness. Graves examined the keypad, encrypted and magnetically sealed. I can't break this without heavy equipment or more time than we have. Evelyn pressed her ear to the cold metal. A faint rhythmic beeping pulsed from inside, a heart monitor. He was there, alive. Liam's gaze moved along the wall and landed on a dusty metal plate near the floor. The paint was chipped, the lettering faded. Emergency atmospheric purge control. I can't open the door, Liam murmured. A reckless plan taking shape. But I can make them open it. He pointed at the panel. These old theaters had manual purge overrides. If there was a chemical issue, this would evacuate all the air in the room. It flushes everything out and replaces it with sterile gas. Anyone inside would have 30 seconds to escape. Graves stared at him with a mix of disbelief and admiration. Evelyn's expression hardened into something lethal. Finch has been suffocating people in here for years, she said coldly. Let's see how he handles it. The screws fought him, old and rusted. Sweat slicked Liam's fingers as he worked the multi-tool, each turn underscored by the faint, fragile beeping from Insidia, a life hanging by a thread. The final screw dropped free. Liam removed the panel, revealing a single thick red lever. Caution, a total atmospheric expulsion. Evelyn met his eyes. No hesitation. She nodded once. Liam gripped the lever and yanked it down. A deep mechanical hum vibrated through the floor. A red warning light began flashing above the door. Inside, the heart monitor's steady tone erupted into a frantic, shrill scream. Equipment crashed. Someone shouted in panic. The keypad beside the door chirped in a frenzy as someone inside attempted override after override, each denied. Then a sharp hiss. The magnetic lock disengaged. The door burst open as Finch stumbled out, gasping and clawing at his collar, his face tinged purple. Behind him came another terrified Dr. Corbin Vance. They hadn't taken 2 breaths before Graves stepped forward, weapon raised. On your knees, he ordered calmly. Hands on your head. Vance collapsed immediately. Finch hesitated, hatred burning through the fear, but the barrel pointed at his chest convinced him. Evelyn didn't spare them a glance. She pushed past and entered the surgical theater. Kellen lay in the center of the room, ghost pale beneath the stark lights. Tubes and wires covered him. Machines shrieked in alarm. He looked unbearably fragile. Evelyn reached him with trembling hands. Kellen, she whispered. I'm here. Behind her, Finch began to laugh, a cracked, wild sound. You're too late, he rasped. Graves's furious scream echoed through the room. Do you have any idea what you've just derailed? That final protocol was precise. Your interference killed him. Evelyn ignored his rant entirely. Her eyes locked onto the tangle of machines, on the 4 lines, feeding countless fluids into her brother's body. The heart monitor was shrieking. Kellen's vitals were spiraling. The purge had overloaded his system. He was crashing fast. Liam stepped in behind her. He wasn't a doctor, he had no medical training, but he understood systems better than most. He knew how to spot what didn't fit. His gaze swept across the 4 bags, clear solutions with printed labels as standard, predictable. But one bag stood out, a small, unlabeled pouch filled with a dark amber fluid. Its tubing was a different gauge and it wasn't even hooked to the main 4 stand. Instead, it was tucked beneath the gurney like someone hoped no one would notice. "That one," Liam said sharply, pointing. "Miss Langford, that bag is wrong. It shouldn't be here." Evelyn followed his gesture and instantly understood. Without hesitating, she ripped the needle from her brother's port and yanked the tube free. The amber liquid splattered onto the linoleum like acid. For a few seconds, the heart monitor continued its frantic screeching. Then a broken bar, the rhythm changed. The wild spikes on the screen softened, leveling into a fragile but steady pattern. Beep, beep, beep. Evelyn pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears running freely. Liam had just saved her brother's life, but the moment shattered instantly. Heavy boots thundered down the main corridor. Shouts echoed. The armed cleaners from the basement, alerted by the alarms that were closing in. Graves snapped his head toward the open door, then back at Evelyn, his expression grim. "They're here and they're not knocking." The steel door shuddered violently as something slammed into it. Again, rhythmic, powerful. "A battering ram. Barricade it," Graves ordered. He shoved Finch and Vance toward the wall and zip-tied their hands with ruthless speed while Liam and Evelyn rolled the massive bank of old medical monitors in front of the door. The rusted casters screamed as they strained against the weight. A dent punched into the steel. "It wouldn't last long. 2 minutes, maybe less," Graves warned, chambering his weapon with a cold, practiced motion. "We need another exit." "The service elevator," Evelyn said instantly. She remembered the hidden escape route from the blueprints. "There," Liam said, pointing toward the back section of the theater behind the observation gallery. A wall of obsolete stainless steel autoclaves and sterilizers loomed like ghosts. The exit had to be behind them. Another bone-rattling impact shook the door, cracks spidering across the wired glass. Shouts were now clear, right outside. "Evelyn, get your brother," Graves ordered. "Liam will help me clear this." The next moments blurred into frantic motion. Evelyn disconnected Kellen from everything except the essential monitors, transferring what she could to the gurney. Her brother stayed unconscious, unaware of the chaos erupting around him. Liam and Graves shoved aside the heavy autoclaves, metal screaming over the floor. Behind the last one they found tied up a narrow metal door, flush with the wall, marked only by a dusty maintenance override panel with a simple latch. "They're using a ram," Graves grunted. The main door was now bowing inward. 15 seconds. Evelyn pushed the gurney closer, fighting the uneven floor. "Liam, the elevator, can you get it running?" He ripped open the override panel. Inside were thick wires and a large rusted switch. The entire system was powered down. "It's offline," he said, dread rising. Another violent impact ripped a hinge free on the main door. "No time to fix it," Graves shouted. He fired twice at the elevator lock, a deafening blasts in the cramped room. The lock exploded, and with a kick, the service door swung open to reveal a dark, greasy elevator shaft. The car sat level with the floor. "Manual crank." He pointed to the big spoked wheel inside. "Only chance we've got." The main door finally tore open with a metallic shriek. 2 armed cleaners stormed in, rifles sweeping the room. Graves fired a tight, controlled burst, dropping the first man. The second dove to the side and opened fire, bullets tearing into the walls. "Get him inside," Graves roared over the thunder of gunfire. "Move." Liam and Evelyn shoved the gurney into the cramped elevator car. Finch and Vance cowered in the corner, shaking. "Graves, come on!" Evelyn screamed. More armed men flooded the room. Graves was trapped, outnumbered but unyielding, firing back with brutal precision. A bullet sparked off the metal beside his head. He looked at Evelyn, one last, silent apology written across his face. "There's no time," he bellowed. "Get him out." "That's an order." "No," Evelyn cried, voice breaking. "I'm not leaving you." Bullets ripped through the wall near them. Liam understood the truth written in Graves's expression. This wasn't a choice, it was sacrifice. Acting on instinct, Liam slammed his palm onto the elevator panel, smashing through a cracked plastic cover and hitting a large greasy button labeled "Emergency Descent." An alarm bell exploded into life. The elevator lurched violently and began to drop. The metal doors screeched closed. Evelyn screamed Graves's name, reaching through the narrowing gap. The last thing they saw was Graves alone, firing into the oncoming wave of cleaners, his silhouette framed by flashing red lights. Then the doors sealed, and everything plunged into clanging darkness. The gunfire vanished, replaced by something worse. The sound of uncontrolled descent. The elevator didn't simply go down, it plummeted. With the emergency brake destroyed, the car rattled and screeched, sparks spraying from the cables above. The cramped space flickered with strobing flashes of metal on metal. Evelyn slammed into the wall, terror overwhelming even her grief. Liam clung to a maintenance rail, throwing his other arm in front of Kellen's gurney to keep it from tipping. Finch and Vance curled into themselves, whimpering as the car plunged deeper into the bowels of the building. Graves's furious shout ripped through the room. "Do you have any idea what you just interfered with? That protocol was precise. You've killed him." Evelyn didn't even look at him. Her focus was locked on the machines surrounding her brother, the 4 lines feeding fluids into his veins, the monitors screaming in alarm. Kellen's vitals were collapsing. His body couldn't handle the purge. The shock was overwhelming him. Liam stepped into the room behind her. He didn't understand medical equipment, and he didn't pretend to. But he understood systems of patterns, consistency, and most importantly, anomalies. His gaze swept the 4 setup, 4 bags in total. 3 looked standard, filled with clear solutions and proper pharmaceutical labels. But 1 bag, small, and labeled, filled with a dark amber liquid, stood out immediately. Its tubing was a different size and wasn't attached to the main 4-pole. Instead, it was tucked beneath the gurney, half hidden like someone had meant for it to go unnoticed. "That one," Liam said sharply. "Miss Langford, that bag shouldn't be here." Evelyn followed his pointing hand and froze. She recognized the danger instantly. Without hesitation, she tore the line out of her brother's port, ripping the tubing loose. The amber fluid splattered onto the floor like toxic waste. For a few seconds, the heart monitor continued its frantic shriek. Then, unbelievably, the jagged peaks began to level out. The chaotic rhythm softened into something weak, but steady, a broken bar alive. Beep, beep, beep. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Liam had saved her brother, but relief lasted only a heartbeat. Heavy boots thundered down the main hallway. Shouts echoed closer. The armed cleaners from the basement, the ones the alarms had summoned, were on their way. Graves glanced at his 2 prisoners, then at the door, his expression turning hard. "They're here," he muttered. "And they're not asking nicely." The steel door jolted under a massive impact. Then another, a steady, brutal rhythm. Someone using a battering ram. "Barricade." Graves barked. He shoved Finch and Vance against the far wall and zip-tied their wrists with practiced speed. Evelyn and Liam heaved a heavy bank of old medical monitors across the floor, forcing the rusted wheels into motion. Metal screeched as they shoved it in front of the door. Another slam hit the steel, leaving a growing dent. "It won't hold," Graves warned. 2 minutes, maybe less. He checked his weapon with a precise click. "We need another exit." "The service elevator," Evelyn said, scanning the room as the blueprint she'd memorized resurfaced in her mind. "There," Liam said, pointing to the back of the theater near the observation gallery. A row of outdated stainless steel autoclaves stood like a wall of silent relics. "It's behind these." Another explosive blow rattled the door, cracking the wired glass. Orders were being shouted outside. "You close now." "Evelyn, get your brother," Graves ordered. "Liam will help me clear a path." Everything became frantic motion. Evelyn unhooked only the essential monitors, transferring the heart monitor and 4 bag onto the gurney. Kellen lay limp, unaware of the chaos around him. Liam and Graves shoved aside the heavy autoclaves, metal shrieking across the floor. Behind the last one was a narrow, unmarked door, flush with the wall. No keypad, just a thick mechanical latch and a dusty maintenance override panel. "They're using a ram," Graves growled. The main door was bowing inward. 15 seconds. Evelyn pushed the gurney over the rough floor. "Liam, can you get to the elevator online?" He wrenched the override panel open. Inside was a jungle of old wiring and a rusted manual lever, clearly a power cut-off. "It's dead," he said, sinking. The hinge on the main door blew off with a crack. "No time," Graves shouted. He fired 2 rounds into the elevator lock. The shots echoed like thunder. The lock shattered, and he kicked the door open, revealing a greasy elevator shaft. The elevator car sat directly in front of them. "Manual crank," he said, pointing to a huge spoked wheel inside. "Only option." The front door finally gave way with a tortured metallic shriek. 2 armed cleaners stormed in, guns sweeping the room. Graves fired a tight burst, dropping the first. The second dove behind cover and unleashed a hail of bullets, filling the room with deafening gunfire and the sharp smell of burning powder. "Get him in," Graves roared. "Move." Liam and Evelyn shoved the gurney into the cramped elevator car. Finch and Vance scrambled into a corner, pale and shaking. "Graves, come on!" Evelyn shouted. More men poured through the broken door. Graves was forced back into a corner, firing relentlessly. 1 man against a swarm. A bullet sparked inches from his head. He glanced at Evelyn, a face grim, eyes apologizing. "There's no time," he yelled. "Get him out of here." "That's an order." "No," Evelyn cried, voice cracking. "I'm not leaving you." Bullets ripped into the wall beside the elevator. Liam saw the look in Graves's eyes. It wasn't fear. It was resolve. Sacrifice. Acting without thinking, Liam slammed his hand onto the elevator's control panel. Under a cracked plastic cover, he found a large grimy button labeled "Emergency Descent." He hit it hard. An alarm bell blared. The elevator jerked violently and began to drop. The grated doors screeched as they slid shut. "Graves!" Evelyn screamed, reaching out as if she could pull him in. The final thing they saw was Graves holding his ground, firing into the advancing cleaners, framed by strobing red emergency lights. Then the doors sealed, swallowing everything in darkness. The sound of gunfire vanished instantly, replaced by something worse. The roar of a falling elevator. The car didn't just go down, it plunged. With the emergency brake destroyed, metal shrieked and cables snapped above them. Sparks cascaded like fiery rain. The whole car shook violently as it dropped through the shaft. Evelyn slammed into the wall, fear overriding even her grief. Liam wrapped 1 arm around a railing through the other in front of Cullen's gurney, keeping it from flipping. Finch and Vance curled up on the floor, screaming as the elevator plummeted deeper into the building's dark core. The elevator dropped so fast it ripped a scream from every throat. The fall lasted only moments, but it stretched out like an eternity, ending in a brutal, bone-shaking crash as the car slammed into the bottom of the shaft. The impact hurled them all across the floor. For a breathless instant, darkness and groans were the only things alive inside the shattered metal box. Then Liam's voice emerged from the black. "Everyone still breathing?" "I'm okay," Evelyn whispered, though her voice trembled. She fumbled for the tactical flashlight Graves had given her, and a powerful beam cut through the darkness, lighting up the chaos around them. The gurney was tipped on its side, but Cullen remained strapped in place. His monitors were dead. Kalina Evelyn dropped beside him, searching for a pulse. "The power's gone," Liam said, already acting. He found the backup switch, flipped it, and the monitor flickered back to life. The steady beat of Cullen's heart filled the silence. Evelyn released a shaky breath. When she looked at Liam, something in her gaze shifted to fear, awe, and realization twisted together. He was no ordinary janitor. He was a man who survived storms most people never even saw. The elevator doors were mangled, jammed shut, but Liam located the manual release lever. Gritting his teeth, he pried them open just far enough to slip through. A moment later, they stepped onto a vast, underground loading dock that smelled of diesel and damp concrete. A single overhead bulb cast long, twitching shadows. "This way," Liam said, pointing toward a massive rolling steel door. "It's the main exit, but it'll be locked down. We need something else." His eyes swept the room. Then they landed on a parked delivery truck. Plan B. As they struggled to get the gurney out of the wrecked elevator, Finch staggered upright, clutching the wall for support. "Wait," he wheezed. focusing only on Liam. "You don't have to help her. You're not like her. I can give you money, millions. And your daughter broken bar the cure." It wasn't a full lie. "I accelerated the data, but I can fix it. I can save her. Just let me walk away. Let me leave, and I'll make sure she gets the treatment." Liam stopped. He turned toward the man who had tried to kill Kellen just minutes earlier, his mind filled with the image of Madia, her small, thrusting fascia and the poison he'd seen Finch pump into Kellen's veins. "You don't get to say her name," Liam said quietly, his voice as cold as the concrete beneath their feet. "You don't save anyone. You destroy people. And you're going to prison for the rest of your life." He turned away. Conversation over. Evelyn watched with a mix of something she couldn't name. She had offered Liam a promise, Finch had offered him everything else, and men like pliable men who had every reason to choose themselves still chose justice. Liam grabbed a fire extinguisher, smashed the truck's passenger window, unlocked the door from the inside, and climbed in. The engine roared to life. "Get him loaded," he yelled. Evelyn and a terrified Dr. Vance pushed the gurney into the cargo bay. Evelyn climbed in beside her brother while Liam slammed the truck into gear. The vehicle surged forward, tearing through the steel door with an explosion of shrieking metal. Alarms erupted behind them as they burst into the cold pre-dawn air. A mile down the empty road, Liam pulled over. Evelyn stepped out, grime streaking her face, and dialed a number on her satellite phone. "This is Evelyn Langford," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "I am declaring an active threat at the North Valley Research Facility. I have direct evidence of illegal experimentation, attempted murder, and large-scale financial fraud. The suspects are armed and extremely dangerous. I need a federal strike team immediately, full quarantine and containment. My authority." She ended the call. Soon, the deep rhythmic thunder of approaching helicopters filled the sky. A swarm of unmarked black shoppers descended on the facility like judgment from above. Evelyn climbed into the passenger seat of the truck, exhaustion finally dragging at her bones. She stared at the distant flashing lights, then whispered, voice cracking, "He didn't make it, did he?" Grave as broken bar, Liam kept driving, staring straight ahead. He had no answer, only the weight of silence. They hit the first federal checkpoint minutes later, and chaos transformed into controlled precision. Medics extracted the unconscious but stable Kellen and rushed him toward a medical helicopter. FBI agents took Finch away in handcuffs, his protests weak and frantic. Dr. Vance followed, silent and broken. An agent tried to question Evelyn, but she cut him off. "You'll get my full statement in an hour," she said. "My priority is my brother." She nodded toward Liam. "He stays with me." The following days blur into hospital hallways, guarded interviews, the endless hum of machines keeping Kellen alive. The raid had obliterated Finch's network in one decisive sweep. The world now saw the truth of his monstrous operation. Director Evans entered Evelyn's waiting room with the solemn expression. "He's a hero," he said. "When my team breached the surgical unit, they found Graves surrounded by 4 unconscious attackers, out of ammo but still standing. He's in critical condition, but he'll survive." Evelyn closed her eyes as a single tear slid down her cheek. Graves had made it. That hope carried them forward. While Kellen slowly recovered, Evelyn kept her promise to Liam. Using Finch's real, uncorrupted research, she created the Langford Byron Foundation, pouring billions into developing a true cure. The world's top neurologists joined the effort. Their first patients were Kellen Langford and Maya Byrne. 6 months later, sunlight poured through the leaves of a towering oak tree outside a quiet suburban home. Liam watched Maya chase a soccer ball across the grass. She ran with perfect balance. She laughed freely. Her hands, so once shaky, were steady and strong. Kellen leaned against the porch railing, a cane at his side, a smile on his face. "Careful there," he called as the ball bounced off his chest. "You trying to send me back to the hospital?" Maya giggled. "You're too strong for that." Liam couldn't stop smiling. The Foundation's treatment hadn't just stopped the disease, it had begun to heal it. Evelyn stepped outside, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. When she handed one to Liam, their fingers brushed a small gesture, but warm and familiar. The distance between their worlds had dissolved, replaced by respect, survival, and something new. "Look at them," she said softly, watching Kellen and Maya. I bought into a lie because I was afraid of the truth. But you a broken bar, you were willing to risk everything to expose it. I wasn't trying to be a hero, Leah murmured. I was just trying to be a dad. That's exactly what heroes are, Evelyn replied. People who protect the ones they love. At the edge of the yard, a man with a familiar limp stood watching a graves. Retired but never far. He smiled as the children played. Maya ran up with a fresh drawing. Not a castle hiding from monsters this time. A home beneath a big oak tree. 5 stick figures held hands. A man with a cane, a girl in yellow, a quiet guardian in the back, a broken bar, and at the center, a man and a woman standing close together. Above them, a bright sun radiated down. Liam swallowed hard as he held the drawing. When he looked at Evelyn, he saw the same understanding reflected in her eyes. They had crossed from a world of steel towers and forgotten closets, from power and invisibility, from fire and loss. And somehow, step by step, they had arrived here. A porch, a sunny afternoon, a place that finally felt like home.